1, 2, 3, swing it.
Do you have an old sound tape or your favorite cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3 format? Do you need a demo CD, radio ad, a DJ or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448 or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We have been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, doublets and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way!
I was terrified about sharing the vulnerabilities of people with difficulties reading and spelling words. However, I can see the value in sharing, and I have taken the time to make some notes about this in my book, Dyslexic: The Silent Difference. You can get your copy now at www.a1tribe.com or amazon.com or amazon.co.uk. Thank you again, everyone, for your support.
Do you like music like this?
Great music all the time.
Or like this?
The music you love.
Maybe this.
Great music that makes you want to turn up the volume loud.
Or life chat like this.
Especially where human life is concerned. Surely, sooner or later, people will realize that lives actually matter.
Then you're in the right place. Keep it locked to World Jam Global, where music is harmony.
Music 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, you're my World Jam. Hotter than them.
See live schedule.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. Back in the day, I didn't really care about the system. It was all about survival. It was do or die. I had too many rivals. I was too young and foolish to stay in school. I learned my lessons in the streets. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time.
I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on World Jam Global Radio.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Got a real indifference of music lesson.
Already did my time. I paid for
Or should I say I got a real indifference of music levels? Just stand by.
did my time. I paid for my crime. I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent, I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime. time. I paid for my crime. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent, I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator.
Okay, I do have a bit of a sound problem. The music might not be coming out as loud as it should be. But I'm hoping that once we start talking, you'll be able to hear us as clearly as you're hearing me now.
Already did my time. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Wow.
So today, we have the story of Andre Gladden. We do have his sister Dee Martin alongside our very own producer TJ.
Trying to cope with this living here.
And due to the various breakdowns that I've had recently, A, with the software to launch this, and B, with my other computer, which meant that I was only running on one, there's a few things that still need to be tweaked and fine-tuned. But here we are live on Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. My name is Kervin Julian, and it's another edition of Issues Today Live.
Our Father, who art
Going out right across the world.
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory forever.
So we're asking you to join us this week as we bring you another exclusive interview of police brutality. Dee Martin is our guest speaker, sharing the story of her brother, Andre Gladden, killed by cops in the most bizarre circumstances. Man knocks on the door for help, having just visited a hospital, and then is treated in the most appalling way before finally being shot by cops. We ask some serious questions today and try to understand just how police can claim that a registered blind man can launch such a threatening attack that forces them to kill him when he can't see. Today's edition is straightly called Blind Men Can't See.
Citizen again. This is my
The
message.
story of Andre Gladden. Coming up next.
Wide, worldwide. And put down those knives. Stop stabbing each other. Yeah.
Oh, I just found a reason why we were so low. We're back. That's fixed. Okay, so without any further ado, let me just first introduce my very first guest, none other than our producer TJ. How are we doing, TJ?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks of chaos, but hey, we're here. We're back live. It's Issues Today. It is great to be back, especially on our favoured platform of broadcasting and streaming right across the world. So, what news do you have
Yes,
for us?
it is.
What news do you have for us today, TJ?
Well, today we're having Dee Martin on, and she's talking about her brother Andre, who's blind. It's a pretty atrocious story that we have nearly every week. They're all atrocious. There's a lot of in the news, a lot of police brutality, as probably everyone can see. A girl got ran over at the beach by a cop car, and it just got to be a stop. And I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to have to find a way to everyone unites, and we can stop this horrendousness.
Well, we right here on. Is somebody driving in a car?
No, we're all stationed.
Okay, there's a lot of noise in the background, but we'll try and carry on and persevere because it's very important that we get this story out to you today. So before we go on to our guest of today, TJ, who have we got next week?
Next week we have the fantastic roundtable that we enjoy so well. That helps us, like Jerry Summers, the police and author, and Patrick Lane and Mark Clements and Justin Powers, Yolanda McNair,
and Jonathan Newton,
Kervin Julia, and Jonathan Newton. It's the debate to how to change laws. How can we get ideas of change, and how do we get past the cost line, and how do we get past the economic pressure? Or we have to put the economic pressure out there. How do we do that? So everyone understands that quote unquote life. We're only potential, not movement. And if we don't gather together, then we'll stay exactly where we are, right?
Right. Okay, well, we look forward to that, and that's the roundtable debate, which will be taking place next Saturday, right here on Issues Today. Without any further ado, our guest today, and again, guys, we've got a lot of outside interference noise taking place, including traffic, so somebody must be aware of their surroundings. Whatever that noise is, we need to mute that down because it's going to drown our broadcast and our stream, and it's not going to do this story any justice, so we just got to find a way to manage that. Okay, so our guest, without any further ado, is Dee Martin. I wanted to give a warm welcome to Dee. Getting this show on the road has been long in the making. I've been desperate to do this show. Long before I managed to make contact with Dee, simply because of the circumstances surrounding this absolutely horrific and tragic circumstance. But we're going to get to that in a very short while. First and foremost, let's just find out who Dee is, what she does, where she's from, and why she's here. How are we doing, Dee?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Kervin.
The pleasure is all ours, and it's an honor and a privilege that you would entrust us to share this story.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Dee.
Well, I am one of 7 children. So I'm here in Sacramento, California, originally from Oakland, California. For a couple of years, my family resided in Portland, Oregon, to where a multitude of us were raised there. Like I said, currently now we're back in California, and we're just, sharing time and memories with the family and being close knit. That's how we are. So I have 2 boys of my own, in which are closely knit surrounding their aunts and uncles. Work a full-time job. Now with this being on the plate is definitely overtime, trying to direct information and awareness to this issue. But other than that, we're trying, the family's trying to survive and make it and hold the police accountable for what they're doing. I'm just an average sister speaking on the behalf of her brother. Her devastated, obviously. but I just want to get the information out and see what we can do. I'm closely knit, grounded here in Sacramento, so with a lot of people that are experiencing the same thing I'm going through. I don't know how, if worse would be the word to use, but it's happening so much, and I've grown close relationship with those that have gone through such a tragic event. That stories are not out there. No, nobody knows. So I try to mingle a lot to get the information out. I'm a completely open book. I have no secrets. I have no problem with getting to know individuals and expressing what has occurred and trying to relate to people. So I definitely just want to share the information.
You know, before we actually get into the story, your life must have been a whole lot different before this curveball came your way.
Yeah, a whole lot. Me and my mother and Andre's wife, we're all here now, but we were just going through some photos and some events, some videos of family as a whole. Us having outdoor activities, just so much fun, just living life, not thinking that something like this we would cross paths with. Andre, and I don't mean to say especially in a bad way, but for we're just going over videos, and I'm seeing and reverencing the moment to those times that we were sharing. So we all definitely look forward to them, but to look back and know that he's not here over a cop in his actions and his inabilities to assess or take care of a situation that he was sworn into, is just beyond me. So it did definitely took a huge turn, and not even obviously it's not just me, but Andre is a twin. He will always be a twin in my eyes. So his twin brother is definitely thrown for a huge loop here. I don't know what it's like to be enter this world with a partner. Phonte Gladden does, and now he's without that partner. So it's devastating. Devastating for him, and it's hard to see him go through that.
I mean, I'm not sure if I've ever interviewed anybody who's lost a loved one that is part of a twin. We often look at the immediate impact that it has on the family, the siblings, the wife, mother, father, etc. But when you've got a twin, that's like part of you has gone, right?
That's right.
I mean, you might not be able to articulate it the same way that his twin brother might, but I would have imagined in some of the conversations that you've had, you're speaking to sometimes what may appear to be half the person you used to speak to. Right,
exactly. And the craziest thing about it all, Kervin, is that while my mother was pregnant with the both of them, at that point, she was only aware that it was one. Throughout the lifespan in the womb, it was one heartbeat, one everything. They operated as a unit even then. So my mother didn't know that Andre was within her until he exited Phonte my mother an hour later. So Andre slipped through there. We had no idea that he was coming. And my mother certainly had no idea that he was coming. So he definitely made a grand entrance. Unfortunately, it didn't end as peaceful as most people would like to have departed from their loved ones. But it's definitely, he was here for a reason. Parts of him still remain here. And we got to withhold the sanity within the family to be able to get the information out. And the more we focus on getting justice, it does provide a slight peace of mind, but we are far off from that at this point. So, and this journey has definitely just started. To not have my brother here with the family is beyond belief. Even with all this time that has passed, I still have those moments to where I just want to drop the F-bomb out of the blue because I'm, still in disbelief, not believing that it happened. For Andre to be as cooperative with anybody, his character, his entire being is nothing of a violent man. So it's kind of clear. It doesn't matter what type of person that you are. If this cop is feeling a certain way, then it's either you or him. And that's the sad truth.
Well, let's find out just a little bit more about the man, your brother, Andre Gladden, and let's talk about the person he was prior to the way that we've come to know him and who he is, prior to him having his life taken from him in such a tragic and horrific way. As a sister, were you older? Were you younger?
Well, Andre is my older brother. Obviously, him and Fonte older brothers. So I definitely always looked up to them and wanted to be a part of everything that we were doing. Typical sibling relationship. Your older brothers didn't want you to hang out with them. They didn't want you to be a part. But what we did as siblings, we did together. And they were always open and willing to, allow us to be around. Andre growing up, he's the adventurous type. He loves nature. He loves being outdoors. He loves animals. He just loves just conversing with people and being in touch with what's going on. He's not an introvert. He's very open and he can articulate himself perfectly fine. I remember him we're always making clubhouses as a kid. He's hurt himself so much trying to do stuff, building clubhouse, climbing trees, being the entertainer for us. I'm like, gosh, Lee, like this man has war wounds all over him, but it's all in good fun. He's always the type to life of the party type of guy. He couldn't dance worth anything, but it was joyful to see him try. It was good to see him try.
That's so cool. I actually think that I'm a cool mover, but my wife tells me that I can't move to save my life either. So it's we share some things.
Yeah, Andre was a mess. I'm like, wait, dude, where'd you get those moves from?
But I think my moves are pretty cool, actually.
He thought so too, Kerwin. He thought so too.
Then we obviously have a lot in common. He sounds like a really fun guy, and I would imagine with you being the younger sister, that means that you've actually known him all your life. So when you came into the world, he was already here. What are your first memories as to looking up at this big brother? Because you've come out and I know sometimes we don't often remember things up until probably about 4 years old and onwards. There's very little of what we can remember prior to that, but still, your first memories of, birthing into this family and having this guy as your brother. I would have imagined there'd have been some playing in the garden, bedrooms and whatever. What were your first memories and the fondest memories of your earliest experiences with Andre?
I would say one of my earliest memories of most that stands out. As I said, I am one of 7, including, Andre. My mom, it was really weird because we're a huge family overall, not just, my siblings. Yeah. And my mother would take hours grocery shopping. And we would have to find something to occupy ourselves. We had other older cousins there watching us, but we would have to do something to occupy ourselves. And we're always so bored. Andre's like, we clean up the room, make sure everything's put together, all the rooms. And then when my mom come back, the room is all turned around. That's because Andre's flipped over all these mattresses, making tunnels and bed sheets over the mattresses. So we're having this little hideout in the room. And we're all there. All there having fun. And I was like, nobody could make this more fun. Like, I enjoyed staying in the house at this point because we have all this little clubhouse built up in the one. I obviously sure everybody has probably done this one point in their lives. But Andre, he was a great cook also. So we'd have food all through the room. We have these tunnels made of mattresses and sheets. And then my mom would come home and she's like, what the, now we have to put up food and we're hiding in these sheets because mom is coming, and we just destroyed the whole room. And Andre, he would be the one hiding in the back, but he was the one who did it. So now we're all getting in trouble. But he was amazing. He was amazing. I am definitely proud to say that he is my big brother. Andre possessed a lot of qualities in a person. To put aside the fact that he's my brother, he possesses a lot of qualities that people nowadays don't express or they're afraid to say because of the judgment. Andre kept it so real. Sometimes it was like you were blown away after speaking with him. And after every things he's telling me as a younger sister, it was always in, my best interest. May not have sounded the proper way that you would convey information to another person, but I understood him. So there was never any judgment. He always understood where a person was coming from. There was no, coming for a higher standard, just relating to person, letting you know whatever walks of life. I've been there. I can understand, I can sympathize with any and everybody. So it's definitely heartbreaking not to have the person around that you can confide everything into. So now we definitely just have to reverence the moment and look back at the times. But it's took a lot. It took a lot. They definitely have no idea what type of person that they removed from our lives. I have no idea.
As your relationship bonded and you guys started to grow, then you've obviously got the interaction with his twin, and you say that you was a pretty large family. And I just wanted to say this actually, because not a lot of people get this, but I got it. I get you, D. I actually really get you. I'm going to share something very quickly, not to be taking away from what you're saying or deflecting from what you're saying, but I just felt the need to share this. I come from, my mother had 14 brothers and sisters, and my father had 14 brothers and sisters. And as I grew up, my entire relationships were all based around my cousins and my brothers and my sister. So it was a family thing. Every weekend, every holiday, the family were together. I really didn't have friends, but I had family. Tight family, close family that I saw all the time. We went to the same schools, we went to the same church, and we spent our time together. And during the holidays, me and my two brothers and my sister, there was only 4 of us in our house, but we would do something quite similar to what you guys did. We had these fold-up beds, and we would use one of the fold-up beds as a van or a jeep. And we would build. So I don't know if you remember the old West Indian kind of crochet frames that they used to make these stuff from, with crochet and knitting for chair backs and chair covers and blankets and stuff. And they were made out of wooden frames with nails going all the way around it so that they could actually weave the wool into whatever it was that they were trying to create. So we'd use one of those as the windscreen for our Jeep, and then we get a blanket to go over the top of that to go out. That would be our roof, and then we'd get the lid of the pail, and that would be the steering wheel, and then we get the broomstick that would stick down on the floor against the wall, that we'd stick the pail lid on top of to be the steering rack to hold the steering wheel up, and we would go on some extraordinary journeys, during the school holidays while mom and dad was at work. We'd be in this Jeep, in this vehicle, and we would travel to some places, taking it in turns to drive and give directions and decide where we were going. And as a young family back then, with poverty being very high on the list of some of the things that was holding us back, and living in close proximity, and we were all living in one room and stuff like that, because I'm a Windrush, I'm a 60s born child, so here in the UK we didn't actually have much resources outside of the home, so we had to make everything inside comfortable for our environment. even to play in, because we didn't go out much. Streets of London ain't a safe place. But if somebody was to ask me, on my deathbed or before I die, or even at, God forbid, I lose one of my siblings, that's exactly where I'd be going to. Those memories, of when we were children, when we were small children, doing those kind of things together, that were extraordinary journeys that no one else but us would actually be able to know what we meant by what we were saying. And so I get you, Dee. I get that tightness, even from that, because, you've got a lot of families today that don't actually interact with each other. Children upstairs playing on PlayStations and Xboxes, and, you've got TVs in the bedroom now where most kids have just gone off watching YouTube or Netflix. They don't interact as we used to back then. We had to play with each other because there was no TV, there was no smartphones, and there was no Netflix or YouTube or Sky TV, satellite TV or anything else. So we had to find something else to do. So I get you, and how tight you and Andre must have become in those earlier years. But my next question to you will be, as you guys started to get a little bit older, and especially with Andre being slightly older than you, he would have started having some external friends come into that family relationship as well, right? In school, etc. What was his relationships like with them?
Well, Fonte and Andre, with them being twins, obviously they're the same age. I have a sister older than me, in which the three of them, they became the three amigos. Wow. And this is Rakinya Gladden. So she shared that time with them. So I can only explain that to you from my perception of their life. Yeah. They were super active in school, super active in high school, a multitude of friends. Andre was definitely a clown by nature, just in general. But I had no idea how many. I know that he connected and had so many friends in high school and in middle school. But what was extremely surprising is people that I had not known, being the younger sister, that, he created so much bond and planted so many seeds from, Oregon to all the way back to California. There were friends of Andre's that just came out of the blue. I'm devastated about what happened. They post all the time on Facebook. The family keeps in communication with them. So they're super active. High school friends that he's gone to, they have come out of nowhere. But Andre has kept relationships with each and every one of them throughout the years. And, that's, his personal thing. With them and making sure that those seeds that he planted throughout the years were watered. So it didn't matter if he didn't see them 2 or 3 years, they were always communicating. His friends became extended family members. All of his friends end up 1 minute meeting my mother, sisters and brothers. Now we're all this huge family and we have another brother. And his friends call my mother mom. And there's like a magnet type thing. And he just draws people closer and closer to him. He's encouraging. He was never the type of kid to bully someone or to be bullied. He always told his peers, and this is, a testimonial from one of his friends from the funeral service. And they expressed how they met Andre and how Andre made them feel, and it changed their lives. As to say, I was this type of kid and I wasn't so confident. I wasn't so this. And whatever it was about Andre that stood out him as a young man, for him to be able to affect someone's life in a positive way at a young age, being young himself, that's powerful. Oftentimes we listen to all the bad things and the good things don't hardly stick, but it's appeasing to know that he had an impact on his peers at that time. And then it just brought forth light in these later days. So I was proud. I was definitely proud before. It just showed me that my brother is everything I thought he was. He didn't play any games. He wasn't a pushover, but he was blunt. He was honest. He was truthful, and he was deep.
I would have imagined that, especially in those sort of like school years, you actually had people watching your back that you didn't even know you had watching your back simply because you was Andre's little sister.
Yeah, Yeah, so every school that I had to follow track into those schools, and there was a little, slight reputation there. So as they, exited the school, I'm going into the school, and the principal knows. Now I don't know, Kervin, if it's a good or bad thing, but they knew not to mess around. They knew that, I was either I was the Jones. That's when the Jones girl, or that's when Fonte and Andre's little sister. So don't mess around. It kind of pushed the boys away, but I was still good. So, but I felt protected. I was fine. I'm so happy with them in general. Sometimes going out, here and there. The guys and Fonte would probably be the worst. You can have fun like a normal girl because you were their sister and brother, because they were just so protective. And Andre was definitely a blast. He'd probably let me get away with a little more than Fonte did, because Fonte was pretty strict. He's like Dad, so no, he can't go. But Andre was ready to go and have fun.
Wow, just hearing how you speak of Andre just really opens him up to us as an individual, as a person, as a warm, kind-hearted, generous, kind and loving individual that sounds a million miles away from the guy that was portrayed in a lot of the media press releases, which we're going to come to very shortly.
Yeah, that was very upsetting.
So when we talk about Andre going through school, what type of an academic was Andre?
Andre was the rooter. I don't recall him playing any sports in school, but outside of school, super active. At that point, I was off doing my own thing. I'm not certain which sports that he was actually into. I'm pretty sure my mom could name a few, but in regards to that, a lot of his friends were active, and where he stood sideline as a cheerer, encourager to have fun and hang out with the guys. But other than that, it was just family. It was just simple family. He had, like I said, he had a lot of friends, but the majority of people that we were around, or he was around, was family.
And during his school years, did he achieve any qualifications, through his exams, etc.?
He did have a lot of achievements in regards to Andre was a skilled writer. He was a master cook. He actually worked in San Francisco out here on the cruise ship as a chef, and that was his dream. And he definitely got to live that, and we were super proud. I actually couldn't believe it at first until he showed us. I'm like, really? But he was awesome. He did have a lot of awards for writing and other academics. Like I said, the cooking, conflict manager. Now that was back in the day, but being able to when you have a person going through, and especially as a kid, obviously, to be able to manage conflict and see what the issues are. He displayed that way back when he was in grade school. So he would help with situations like that. He helped mended little relationships within in school, in high school, in elementary school. So other than that, that's as much as I'm aware of. Like I said, my mother would have a lot more information for you on that one, but that's as much as I know about that.
No, that's fine. You're doing marvelous. And so then, as he got older, as he got into his teens, I'd even imagine that he would branch out a little bit more, because now he's getting to that age where he can, push out his chest, throw back his arms, and experience an adventure, the world. What was he like with the ladies, and how did he handle those type of relationships?
I don't think you have time for that one. Andre is definitely a ladies' man. He was definitely a ladies' man. He did get out. I have an older brother. My oldest brother is Tyree Walker. He passed of prostate cancer back in 2000, when Andre was about 18. So before that, which leads me to say that Andre's life kind of took a shift. So that person that I was describing to you in high school, now he's not that person at this point in time. Yeah, he did get out with the ladies. He did make his mark here on the world. Andre did start to have children. But he was very close to his brother, Tyree. And Tyree was about, if I'm not mistaken, he was 22 at the time. Andre Fonte and Tyree, they ran closely together. And in fact, Andre and Fonte looked up to him to be a father of some sort, because Tyree was head of household at that time for the family. They were out, enjoying life. Typical, these are three brothers now, and they're out enjoying life and enjoying what brothers do. He found in the my oldest brother, Tyree, found out that he had cancer, and Andre was not completely aware. He held that information from a few of us. And when Andre found out, he was upset to the point where he didn't know what to do, thinking that he would lose his brother. And when we did lose Tyree in 2000, his life kind of shifted. It kind of shifted on the spectrum. I am not sure if I've spoken to Teresa in regards to this, but the situation that happened with Andre here in January 6th was not our first loss of life by the hands of police officers. My cousin Ernest Neff, Neff was murdered in 1997 by Portland Police Department. Pittsburgh Police Department. He was paralyzed. They beat him and threw him up, cut open a gate and put him through it to say that he drowned. But there was no water found in his lungs to say that. Lord. So the police beat the bones literally out of his body. So Andre losing his older brother, losing his older cousin, it started to take a toll on him, which leads me into the fact of how the mental part started to develop. So this is a huge, drastic change in his life. At a young age, not being able to fully comprehend, handle, or get how he's feeling out. Like I said, a drastic change. These are people, family members, that older family members that he's lost.
And how could it not?
Devastated. Yeah, devastated. And he's at the age between 17 and 18 to where, I'm just getting started, a big, bright future ahead. And then this happened. So it was devastating for the whole entire family, the severity of what we've all gone through.
What was Andre's relationship or engagement with local law enforcement officers up until that point in his life?
Honestly, Andre's never been in continuous contact with the police. So Andre here in California, I've never recalled him actually being a reason for police to be called on him or for him to interact with the police. He wasn't that type of dude, and I'm not going to paint him to be the most innocent person or party. But if in case he did have an altercation with the police, it wasn't serious to where he ever went to jail. At this point, him growing up, he wasn't involved in the street life that way. We were so wrapped up in family and doing that there was no time for that. Now, if in case, and this is me here between 2012, 2019, Andre knows exactly how to conduct himself in the presence of police officers. With that being said, we saw too much to go and act against it. Now, there are, he would tell them if there were anything in his pocket. Sometimes a group of him and his friends would be chilling somewhere and it's too many of them. So the police is showing up and then they're instantly frisking. So Andre would tell them, oh, I have a lighter here, or oh, I have this here. So he's going to let you know. He's going to let you know if he has anything on him that he feels it shouldn't be there. And he knows he's joking and interacting with the cops to where they're laughing and chuckling. And Andre goes about his day, and the officer as well. So there's never been a situation to where he didn't know how to conduct himself in the presence of the law. Regardless, there's no way.
Oh. So we're now going to enter into that area that you just shortly described as to how we started to encounter these mental health related episodes that was to have such a devastating impact on part of his life. Tell us a bit more about that, please, Dee.
Okay. Kerwin, I couldn't hear that first part of what you stated.
So we're talking about that particular portion of his life where mental health related issues were to begin to start having that negative impact on him. You referred to that just a short while ago, that you was just about to get into that. So I felt let's proceed. Let's investigate this area. How did this mental health or his state of mind start to impact him? When, why, and how?
So when it was during the loss of his cousin, so the loss of his cousin, and due to the fact of how it happened, he lost respect for authority. Quite honestly, like we all have after seeing he lost respect for them. Not to say that his behavior around them or surrounding him changed at all, but it wasn't the same type of respect that he would have. With the loss of his cousin was hurtful. The loss of his brother further added to that existing pain. So Andre, he and his brother, like many siblings, would have an argument, a fight of some sort. Andre and Tyree had a verbal disagreement between brothers, and they didn't make up before they departed. Andre went one way, Tyree went the other way. Andre later found out Tyree was sick. And before Tyree passed, Andre didn't get a chance to say bye to him and mend that relationship. So
that would have had a real devastatingly negative impact.
Yeah. He said some things. I don't know at that time. I remember the time, but I don't know exactly what was said. But he said some things that he shouldn't have said to his brother. And Andre, he knew that. And he sat with that for a minute until he got the nerve to apologize to his brother. But at that time, it was too late. He was gone.
Let me just stop right there before you carry on. It's so important if anybody's listening right now, if you've had a falling out with a family member, if you've said some harsh words that you wish that you'd never said, if you've got broken relationships that need mending, I want you to just to take some time and search your heart right now. And if you get an opportunity to fix it, don't hesitate. Don't waste another second. Make that call. Do the visit. Be the one that breaks the ice and opens up that door and that window of opportunity for reconciliation. Because, if you don't do that, this is something that you're going to regret when it's too late. Mm-hmm. It's imperative that I say that right now as Dee has us in this moment, which I think is significantly important, especially when you talk about how these thoughts, feelings were going to later on impact. And I think TJ just wants to come in very quickly before we move on. What was you going to say, TJ?
I was just going to say that you're absolutely correct. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Travis, and I find that haunting to this day. However, there wasn't any animosities or any separations or disconnections. It's still, no matter what these cops do, so many of us are affected, and it's not anything that we can, but how important, yes, to say you're sorry and make amends. for the soul, and just for
just to give you
I don't
peace,
know.
just to give you
It
peace.
is really. I didn't get to say goodbye to Trav.
Dee, thank you very
And
much.
I-
Sorry, TJ. Dee, thank you very much for taking us to that place. I think it was really important that message got said, got spoken. It was right and fitting that it came out the way that it did. And with that, we share and we feel what you're going through right now, and your family. And thank you again for honouring us and trusting us to share this story. So his state of mind started to play games with him as I would imagine, as he delved into a minor or a mini depression, so to speak, as thoughts and feelings started to weigh heavily, and he struggled, I would imagine, to understand and comprehend how he had no coping strategies either to deal with the effects of how these feelings were leaving him, and possibly or probably didn't feel like he actually had an outlet, a go-to, to be able to discover how best to cope with these thoughts and feelings that he was being left with. Tell us how else you saw that as in your family, how else you saw that manifest itself.
That Andre, he did have avenues to relieve thoughts, relieve his feeling. My mother, growing up, she's always told us, no matter what you feel, if something is wrong, you say it. If there's an alternative method to where you get this information out, either to your aunts, me, your brothers or sister, our family, like I'm telling you, our family is so tight and so in each other's faces constantly. So there's not a situation to where we're not knowing what's going on with somebody. So when Andre's off, you can tell by his demeanor, because he'll extract himself. He'll be quiet. Other times he'll cook. Other times he'll just, be on the phone talking with my mom or his wife or whomever it may be. So he had outlets within the family, but professional, that didn't happen until the later years, so where he started to seek medical attention and be prescribed medication for the situation. Andre, that it threw him for such a loop. It didn't entirely change his behavior, more so his interaction with people, because you have to understand, Andre was with Andre Tyree, my cousin Ernest, and his twin brother. At this point, Fonte had moved back to Portland, Oregon, and Andre was here alone. Well, not alone. He was with the family, but his brother wasn't there. And there were times where if Fonte would leave, Andre would get sick. He would get ill. So Fonte would have to come and travel back. But after losing them, it was the three of them. And now that they're gone, he may have felt like, in regards to his peer circle, that he was alone. And we always try to let him know that that's not the case, that we're here. We had so many family events to where we can't have the whole family at the same place at the same time because there's just too many. So we would, do every 3 months or every some odd month, get together as a family. But he would always engage with the family, but outside individuals, it was different. It was different. He just stood closer to the family and focused in on that, opposed to someone new coming in. I think a lot of that had to do with huge bonds that he created that were, now these people are gone, and the fear of another loss prohibited building other relationships, is the way that I saw his behavior change. Andre,
I don't actually think we've ever done a show where we've actually not got to the nitty gritty within the first hour. There is just so much to hear about this character that seemed to be so full of life, so full of love, so full of giving, that I feel compelled to just want to hear and share more of who he was before he was so sadly taken away from you and those that he could have had a more positive, prominent impact on. So we're going to carry on just a little bit longer as you continue to tell us about this wonderful man who we're sharing the story of today, which is Andre Gladden, on the back of the Blind Men Can't See theme, which is what we've entitled this show. And as we get into that, people will begin to understand why we've entitled the show Blind Men Can't See. Just carry on, Dee, and I've got another question waiting for you, but just want you to carry on explaining as you are.
So with that being said, he kind of, all the friends that he had, they were still in communication. The family stood the same, but it was just focusing on the family. Andre would have, like I said, he'd have, he had his wife. He started to have his children. Andre started to have children pretty early. Matter of fact, him and his twin brother, between the two of them, they have about, I would say 11 between them. Andre has 5 children now. And he kind of associated him. So he stuck very closely, honestly, with his wife. They were a duo for a long time, and they still are up until this moment. So his wife, Polina Gladden, they did so much together. So when he was out in the world, it was him and her. And that's where he started to develop that family essence about him, being protective, being just in the moment, to where he had he befriended a friend by the name of Miguel, to where he was began to get really extremely close with, and they rode like brothers. And Andre felt as if parts of Tyree was revealed back to him through this young man. And so he held him very, very, very close. And he lost him to a shooting. And that kind of, for some reason, it just keeps on getting to that point to where these relationships, he's losing people. And I think that's where I understand, or from my impression, believe to be how the whole mental situation continued to manifest itself. And he dealt with it the best way that he could. Even then, it did. He's never been a violent person, but when he gets to those depression states, he's at home and minding his business by himself. When we want to see Andre, we'd have to come to him or call him out. He started to seclude himself. And that kind of changed things to where typically, when we say family functions, nobody needs an invite. If you're family, you're coming. So you should know that. But it got to the point to where now we have to call him and tell him to come. And that wasn't typical. When he came, he was there and it was normal behavior. But a lot of that was probably showing brave face for my mother, letting her know that he's okay. But in hindsight, he's still dealing with the hurt, the pain, the loss of his cousin, friend, and brother. So it kind of just spiraled from that point. So that's where it started. And I think with an individual going through that for such a while without medication, him maintaining that on his own, he did a damn good job. He did a dang good job.
The unfortunate thing is when people isolate themselves, especially if their health and especially their mental health is deteriorating, but it really doesn't matter what sort of health it is. If you have if you had cancer and you didn't know that you had cancer, and you just carried on living your life without going to the doctors, without having a checkup, it's quite possible and probable that by the time they eventually got you in front of a doctor, it would be too late, because the cancer would have probably settled in your body and they would be giving you weeks, months, sometimes possibly days to live. Because you're not aware, you're living your life as actively as you possibly potentially can. You're not aware of any ailment or illness that you might have that might be detrimental or terminal. And so the same can be said with mental health. If you're going through a type of depression and you're not used to being depressed, you don't know what the signs are, you don't know what to look for, you don't know what to expect, you don't know how to manage it, you don't know how to handle it, you haven't got no coping strategies to deal with it, you don't know how to explain to anybody that you feel this way and you can't stop yourself feeling this way, because when you're somebody like Andre Gladden, so many people rely on you for their encouragement and upliftment. So how the hell can you turn around and say, I can't do that today, friend? You know, be the person that you expect me to be. So when he found himself not being able to feel the way that he was supposed to feel in order for him to live up to the person everybody else expected him to be, he just secreted himself. Would that be a fair assessment?
It would be fair. It would be fair.
So now he's hiding, he's at home, and I get where you're coming from, where now people are having to go and seek him out, search him out, invite him to family functions and say, hey, this is going on, you know, you better be there. And I would imagine there was still some of those that he still didn't attend.
Yeah, it was it was some events that, you know, that he didn't attend. How he was extremely, I think a lot of his feelings and depression was buried into his family, because Andre was always Andre and Paulina were kind of always on the go. So a banquet, an event, you know, traveling out, going here, going there. They did a lot. So I think instead of properly dealing with it, he buried himself into that too. And with the birth of his children, interacting with family, that kind of was a way for him to let out some things. He would have deep conversations with individuals, family or friends, where most would think, when they said the schizophrenia, bipolar, yeah, I understand that. But coming from reading these articles, it kind of states like they're referring to a crazy person, which I never identified with that or never associated Andre with being crazy out of his mind of anything. Andre was the type of person that he was deep all the time. Everything he said meant something. We would have conversations with our kids in front of him as a parent, disciplining or telling them not to do something. Andre would tell us, don't just tell him to do this. Explain to him why you want it done now.
Tell him why.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Tell him why.
Don't just tell him to do that. And he'd say, like, when we would hug each other, you know, like I feel every family kind of has this. You can feel the heart of a person when they look you in the eye. You can feel the love from a person when you hug and grab him. If Andre felt that you were coming to him with false feelings, he'd tell you. He said, no, don't hug me like that. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel that. You get what I'm saying? So that was friends, that was family, that was everybody. Andre, if he told you, if he would explain a situation to you, not to get an answer, but to see where your mindset was. And I said, it's crazy because people call him nuts, but he's trying to search the type of person that he's speaking with. What kind of conversation could I have with this individual? Let me see where their mind is, type guy. So although he has the ability to adapt, he's like a chameleon. You put him anywhere and he'll survive. Andre is a survivor by all means. I have not gotten to the fact of why he's blind, but Andre, from the day of his birth, he's been a survivor. If we didn't have anything, Andre would find a way to make it. If we couldn't cook something on the stove, Andre would find a way to start a fire. If the lights wouldn't come on, he'd know which wire to tweak to make the lights come on. If it came to it and we didn't have anything on this land, Andre could build me a house, do the plumbing, and cook dinner all at the same day. And that's the brother I'm rolling with. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. Andre, he'll tell you. He said, we got to do what we got to do regardless of what we don't have. We have to use what we got. And I respected that. Nobody who's ever crossed Andre's path could say that he was fake, he was wrong, he wasn't 100%, that his love wasn't real and genuine. They've always said any encounter they have with Andre, he searched their hearts as well as their minds. There's not a person that he's crossed paths with that he didn't impact in a positive way, one way or another. Andre being blind or him not having, Andre could be walking outside with the shirt on and it's freezing cold with no coat, and he'll take off a wet shirt, let alone a dry shirt, and give it to somebody else. Andre's many times walked out of my mother's house with shoes and clothes on and come back with no shoes on, or his socks are gone, or he gave somebody the last $2-3 he had, and he'll give it away and find a way to make it back. But that's how he is. And he was very specific with the kids and how he felt the kids should be treated. He always conveyed to us, it doesn't matter how big or small a person is. If you want a message to be brought across, you go down to their level. And if it makes you feel like, oh, you're not this or you're not that, you have a mission. And that's to convey the point. You have to do that by any means to get them to understand where you're coming from.
You know,
So that's
I don't want the show to end and we don't get to the part we need to get to. Andre Gladden is one hell of a man who's missed quite sadly, A, by you, and B, by his family, and especially all of his friends who knew him a lot better than we ever will. I just want to thank you for taking the time out that you've taken in sharing that side of Andre with us, that the world wouldn't have allowed us to see unless we heard it from you or his family members themselves. So, for that, I want to thank you and honor you for having the time to share that with us so that we can see the depth of your loss and what Andre meant to you. One question I do want to ask you before we move on is, at what point in Andre's life did he start to lose his sight or lose his sight?
It was 5 years ago. My mother, we're in Sacramento at this point. Andre happened to befriend an individual who lived across the street from my mother. They become really close. He would see him on occasion, and they became really close. Then he confided in Andre that he was suffering from cancer. So now it went from a, every now and again type seeing this guy to Andre is constantly at his house, helping his wife prepare meals, sitting and joking out, having a beer, and just talking. So happened this individual started a business to where he was going to live on the premises of where the business was. So Andre was helping him take furniture and items from the house to the RV where he was going to live. So he paid Andre for this service. And Andre was doing that. And this is about September 20 something. It was close to my birthday. So it's September 26, I want to say, 5 years ago, 2014. And he was on the stoop getting ready to go to work. So he was waiting for his boss to pick him up. My mother and myself, and I forget, there's another sibling that was with us, but I forget who it was. I forget who it was, but we were getting in the car and my mother says, well, Andre, you come with us. We're going to go out and we're going to go get outfits for Donna's birthday because we planned to all go out. And he said no, that he couldn't. He was getting ready to go to work. So we sat there trying to convince him for a minute, but he had to go to work. So I don't know what else we were going to say. So eventually we said our goodbyes and we left there. We left my mother's house. And I would probably say within 20 minutes, probably less than that, 20 minutes being us arriving to our location, we got a call. My youngest brother, Marquise, was constantly calling my sister who was at work. I don't know why he didn't call us or if he called and we didn't answer. I'm not specifically sure, but he called her a multitude of times, and eventually she got a hold of me, and I was with my mother, and what she said it almost killed me instantly, is that Andre was shot in the head. When you hear somebody say that, that's no way that you think that that person is still there, is still among the living. So I automatically assumed that he was gone. And my mom, she just in such a panic. Right where we were, the hospital was right around the corner. And my mom goes all the way back home. And at this point, we're dodging cars, going through lights, where everything we couldn't even get there. The streets were all blocked off. So what happened when we left? A older guy in his 70s was trying to bully Andre for keys to this house. Andre didn't know the guy. He didn't know what he wanted the keys for. He couldn't give him something he couldn't have. So the guy threatened his life and wanted to fight him. Andre told him, you're going to have to come back with your nephew or somebody, because I'm not going to fight you. You're too old. So, and he may have said some other choice words, but the guy was very embarrassed because he had some other people with him, and the youngster talked to him that way. So before pulling off, he had some words going around the car, and Andre was under the impression that he was leaving. Instead of him leaving, he came and pulled a shotgun and shot him. And because of the pellets, the distance, he embodied a majority of those pellets, because it was pretty close range. If in case there would have been a lot more distance, then he wouldn't have impaled so many of the pellets. But because of that, it hit from his pelvis on up, which caused them to shoot out his teeth, pellets in his torso, his neck, his eyes, his head. Nobody on Marquise, my brother Marquise, was home when this happened. I think he heard yelling, but at this point, we're in a huge neighborhood with kids, so it wasn't abnormal. So Marquise had run outside and kind of saw maybe his brother down, and ran inside to go and get something to help him. Andre felt his condition and asked for his wife and to tell his kids that he loved him. A friend of my mother's happened to be in the neighborhood, which held on to him until the ambulance arrived. However, Marquise running up to, and Marquise is the baby brother of all seven, he was running up to give aid to Andre to help him. And Andre saw him with the other eye and motioned him. It covered his face so Marquise wouldn't see, and to tell him to go back, so he wouldn't see him. He was rushed to the hospital. There was so much that they were saying whether he was going to make it or he wasn't going to make it, but that caused, we kind of had some hope that he would regain vision of his eye, but then we didn't know the severity. So Andre's face was riddled with pellets. His eye was protruding out on his cheek. And the other eye was damaged. So there was pellets in his socket, in his brain. There were pellets everywhere. Day by day, he was losing pellets in his sleep, everything. And they were everywhere because he took the bulk of them. But Andre, through the grace of God, the family was on a huge mission like you wouldn't see before in your life. I told Facebook, I didn't care if you guys didn't come to the hospital. Stand at the hospital door and stretch your hands forth, because I need something to happen. I cannot lose this man. And everybody, they prayed, they went to the churches, everybody did lend their support. And the family was there as usual. Everybody was, couldn't believe what happened, but God gave back what I thought was gone, or what I thought was because it didn't look good at all. And my aunt took me in the hallway and said, Dee, this is not, this is not over. And I'm looking because my eyes, I'm a human, my eyes see something that's not good. But my spirit was like, oh, this can't be it. And that's affirmation, because my auntie just told me that this is not going to happen. And my mom's like, we're going to pull this through and this is going to happen. So day by day, he continued to show progress. And he was able to get up, and he couldn't see, but he was writing, and he was trying to communicate to us on the boards. And he knows the character of us all. Either she's at work all the time, she's always here, so he's asking for people, where are they? Or saying, why are you here? You're supposed to be at work. Or, he's making jokes, because Andre, he never called me Donna. He always calls me Black. And so he's been calling me that since I was a little girl. But he said he was just trying to communicate with us. And, the family would laugh and giggle around him and constantly speak with him to let him know that we're there. So in the hospital, we were like a legion of people here at this hospital, day after day after day, and until God decided to deliver him from that situation. And I thank God. And they said that eye was completely done for. At that time, we didn't know that the left eye was in its state. But after a while, because of that eye needing to be removed and the other one existing, Andre wanted to hold on to it in hopes that he would regain vision. But that didn't happen. So he went doctor's appointments, surgeries. We were taking him back and forth to see what can happen, how the vision can improve. So he that left eye, it kind of took power away from the other, and whatever could have become of that, it was pulling strength from one eye to the other. But and the lack of that eye being not in the socket anymore. So it kind of just rotted for a while, because Andre didn't want it to be removed, because he still had hopes that it would be. But the medical terms, they did explain it to him. My mother explained it to him. We all explained it to him. So he was, he's had a vision all his life. So for that to just be taken away from you, it was devastating to him. He couldn't understand it. He's in the mindset to where, is this punishment? And like I said, Andre's always been a nature guy. He's climbing the trees, going here, going there. He's super independent. He felt like it was a punishment. And he was devastated about it. He'd cry about it. Nobody knows what it feels like to be in the sun and be completely in the dark. He would explain what he saw to the best of his ability. He was frustrated with being at a place when we have all our senses, sometimes we take certain things for granted. He's been living at the house for a while with my mom, back and forth, and with his wife, and he walked those floors for years. And then when this happened, he didn't know where he was going. He bumped into everything. And I would think like, well, he should have, the floor plan down, but that it wasn't that way. There was a lot mentally going on there. So he was frustrated with the fact that he could not do things himself. He would walk and go down the hallway, and where he would think he's going down the hallway, because at this point, he wants to be a man and figure this out himself. He didn't want to feel handicapped, didn't want to feel any of that. So we didn't, we weren't, every time he got up, we weren't up and jumping, because he would say something. He's like, I can do it. I can, or get frustrated. And we didn't want to add that additional stress. So we let him figure it out. Eventually he did that, but it was a long road to him accepting what happened.
Well, listen,
being able to maneuver.
Here's the thing. He's gone from tragedy to tragedy. He's been strong, spirited, encouraging, supportive, and yet at the same time, with all of the negative impacts that he was having, his mental health was breaking down because of things that he was struggling to cope with, and was unable, for whatever reason, to find an outlet or a release for. But then, because we really do need to bring it to this point, we're 20 past the hour of 7 o'clock. We've got 40 minutes left of this show, and I really want the audience to get an understanding of how a blind man can be so viciously shot down and set up, because without cutting the story, it was only after they killed him they found out that he was blind. But by that time they'd already planted everything to make it look like he was the assailant. But let's just go back, shall we? Let's rewind back from that point to that fateful day. What happened, how it happened, as best as you can remember, Dee.
So as best as I
So 1 second, you might want to put your phone, switch your phone off or put it on Do Not Disturb, because your text messages are buzzing through.
Okay.
But still,
just a moment.
Tell the story.
Okay. So on January 6th, the altercation. I'm going to see if I can take these notifications off, because it is continually buzzing, and I don't want it to interfere with anything.
No, that's fine. While you take a quick look at that, tell me when you're ready. I'm going to read a particular article that I found. And it says, the man shot by Portland police on Sunday struggled with mental health problems and was seen at the emergency room at an Adventist medical center in southeast Portland before he was killed, according to family members. Police shot Andre Gladden, 36, inside an apartment less than a mile from the front doors of the hospital's emergency room. That's the hospital emergency room that he had frequented, that he had visited shortly before this had taken place. Exactly why he was at the hospital still remains unclear. We didn't even know that he had went to the hospital, said Rukenya, Sandra's sister. We don't know what he went to the hospital for. And we don't always know if these reports are genuine or genuine quotes from the family. Hopefully we might get some understanding when Dee comes back. A map showing the distance between Adventist Medical Center's emergency room and the apartment where Andre Gladden was shot and killed shows it's a very, very short distance. In fact, there's only one turning to the left between the two, and it's literally a walk around a block by the looks of it. It says that Gladden was an African-American man from Sacramento who was in Portland visiting his cousin. Gladden struggled with schizophrenia and took medication for bipolar disorder, family members told OPB. While it's still unclear why Gladden was at the hospital, the fact that he was there at all raises questions about his well-being and his mental state the day police shot and killed him. Before we go any further, I just feel the need to share something very quickly before Dee comes back in. I lost a cousin of mine, not killed by cops, but I lost a cousin of mine's. I think I was about 14, 15 years of age at the time. And he was one of my oldest, but still within the circle of people that I was with almost every day. We lived in the same house, on the same street, until he'd moved out to go live with his girlfriend. Anyway, while he'd been living with his girlfriend, he'd entered into a bit of a depression. And he was struggling with the relationship that he was in, and couldn't understand certain things that was going on way beyond our knowledge and understanding. We wasn't informed of what was actually going on with him at the time. Neither did he express any real difficulties when we saw him. But he had gone to visit the hospital at one point because he was struggling with how he felt. And they automatically assumed that he was a real nutcase, so to speak. So they held him, they sectioned him, which here in this country basically means that they held him against his will. They put him in a secure unit, in the mental health unit of the hospital, I suppose in their opinion, to try and investigate his level or standard of mental health. Once he'd been there, I think he was there for about 2 or 3 weeks, they realised there was actually nothing physically or mentally wrong with him. He was just having a difficult time. So they let him go. He went back home and carried on living with his girlfriend, and things didn't get much better, but he found himself once again struggling with whatever the circumstances was that he was living with her at the home. And he went back to the hospital in order to try and see if they can give him some sort of assistance, any kind of help whatsoever. At which point they made it quite clear that they were about to section him again. My cousin went to the top floor of that hospital, jumped off and took his life. My mother, who works at the hospital, was the one that had to identify his body as it laid on the forecourt of the hospital grounds. And I'll never forget my mother's face when she came home from work that day. Her nephew, her godson, whom she had to identify and then go and call his mother to bring his mother there, because his mother didn't live too far away from the hospital either. But the fact that so many people can get this wrong, the fact that so many people can misconstrue, can misunderstand when somebody's asking for help, the fact that people's perceptions differ from experience, knowledge, is such a travesty beyond any shadow of a doubt. That, or more often than not, people who have minor issues go through much more traumatic experiences than they need to, simply because the people that they approach lack understanding of what they're looking for. So I just felt the need to share that, because I could imagine whatever Andre was going through when he went to the hospital that day. I don't believe for 1 minute he was looking for the outcome to be an officer was going to take his life at any point. But I'm hoping that if Dee's available now, she can enlighten us as to what she can recall about what went on that day just before Andre's life was taken. Are you there, Dee? Right, we've just lost Dee. I'm gonna try and call her back into the show again. Whether she's lost her signal, I think she's trying to turn off her notifications so that we don't continue to get these buzzing sounds. But here she is, she's back. So yes, Dee, as I was saying, hopefully you can enlighten us now as to what was going on for Andre that day, as far as you guys are aware, when he first tried to seek help with the hospital.
So on January 6th, we were made aware that Andre left his cousin Diamond Randolph's house around 7 that morning. So we're unaware of the reason for his hospital visit, or if he even checked himself in, or if he was brought there. We're unaware. Between the time of 7 in the morning to what the witness is stating, that Andre arrived between the hours of 12 and 2 to his home. Articles say different times, so we're not able to draw an exact timeline. Only that by 2 p.m. he knocked on Desmond's door. Desmond Piscaya is the witness. He knocked on his door and said, "I was just released from the hospital. Somebody's trying to kill me. I need help." Desmond stated that Andre did not appear to be a threat to him, and that somebody by the name of Ernest told him that he could come here for help. Now, going back, you remember when I told you Ernest Neff was murdered in 97?
Yeah.
He said that my cousin told him to go to that house that he could get help there. Desmond did not know who Ernest was, obviously. And that's why I say that he was in a current condition of a mental health crisis.
He was having a crisis.
So, right. And so he said that Desmond said he didn't know Ernest. He didn't believe that Andre was released from the hospital because he looked disheveled and he didn't look like a person who was just released. But based on the Portland police report, it stated that Desmond admitted to the fact that he saw the wristband and the hospital gown under his clothes. But he didn't believe that he was just released from the hospital. Andre, I don't know if he was offered the glass of water or he asked for it himself. Gave him a glass of water, offered him $5 to $10 to catch the MAX train. Andre said, "I need more help than that. Not money-wise, but he needs to get out of the street. He didn't feel safe." Desmond told him that he could not come in, but he can rest on his porch for 5 or 10 minutes. Now, because the article is changing each time the witness states something, we're unsure as to how the call was actually made, because in the report it says that he went to the landlord's house who stays behind him, and this is an occupancy of 18 people. However, he was the only one there. It's either he went to get the water for Andre and brought it to him, went and told the landlord, that this man is on his porch. This is happening. It states that he was advised to call the police. Now, if you're labeling him an intruder and he's on your porch, you're getting him water, you left him alone. He's an intruder, mind you. So either it transferred that way as to how they both ended up calling the police. I have no idea. The family still doesn't have the 911 call. So after a few moments, he delivers Andre the water, goes to sit down, and he states that Andre knocked on the door again to say, somebody's after me, something's going on. And now this article, they don't know that Andre is blind. He said Andre was awakened out of his sleep by what is now known as a police officer. We don't know if he's within uniform or if he's in a patrol car, if there were sirens rushing to the area. He had no idea who this person was. He banged on the door again. The witness, Desmond, opens the door. And Andre, at this point, is confiding in this man, the witness, Desmond, for protection. This person is after me. They're trying to get me. They're trying to do this, that, and the third. Desmond, he said, that's a fake cop. That's a fake badge. He can't see. Desmond admits to the fact that he knew that Andre was blind one way or another in one eye because he saw the discoloration that it was gone. But he wasn't aware that he was legally absolutely blind. He stated that Andre didn't appear to be a threat, that he didn't appear to be aware of where he was. He did not talk to him, but at him in the direction of his voice. So while the officer has Andre at gunpoint at a distance, he's yelling to.
Here's the question. Here's a quick question, D. So the officer's on the doorstep. Andre has been made aware that he's been approached by somebody that he's not comfortable about. He knocks on the guy's door, whom he had fallen asleep on his porch, having previously knocked on his door asking him for help, based on the fact that in his mind, his cousin had told him to knock on the door and ask this guy for help. That was his belief. The officer arrives, and in all fairness to the officer, he does not understand what Andre's state of mind is or why he's knocking on that particular door, right? But the officer must be able to hear Andre pleading with this guy at the door, stating that this guy's out to kill him, this guy's up to no good, or whatever it was that had Andre frightened and frantically trying to look for an escape route while he was being approached. My question has to be, at what point did the officer not realize that the first port of call at this point in time should have been de-escalation? To reveal who he was, to try and calm Andre down and tell Andre, this is not what you think. I'm not here for that. Calm down. Let's talk. What's going on here? Anything that would have actually tried to give Andre some sort of confidence that the person that he was being confronted by didn't mean him any harm.
So I'm unaware of that either. However, it goes back to the contents of which the police were called. What was the information on the 911 call that allowed him to arrive in such a manner? You understand what I'm saying? Because
absolutely.
Because if the importance here is that the manner in which the call was placed, what if it wasn't life-threatening or a criminal altercation or something transpiring in that nature, what was said on that 911 call per the witness and the landlord?
So why have you not applied for that 911 call? Have you not been able to?
We did appeal, but they deemed it no importance. that it was of zero importance, so we were denied that appeal. However, there are forward motions.
But how could that be of zero importance when whatever was put in that call, and however that call was made, determined the approach and the attitude that the officer arrived in?
Absolutely.
And could also clear the officer of any wrongful approach if the call that was first made was one that was to suggest that this was a detrimental situation and life-threatening, with somebody being in a danger to either himself or another, right? So for me, if there's any evidence in that call that suggests that the person who made the call implied that there was a danger to someone, whoever, including himself, that would then clear the officer in approaching in potentially such an aggressive manner. Irrespective of whether he was right or wrong to fire the gun, you would understand why he was hyped up when he got there, expecting some form of negative, violent confrontation. So it's imperative. It's imperative that call is retrieved and released, so that it could be ascertained as to the content of that call to determine the officer's state of mind and his purpose on arriving at Desmond's doorstep.
Mm-hmm. And mind you, there was not only one call placed. There were 2 calls placed in the matter of 3 to 5 minutes. So along with the landlord advising the witness to call the police, when he returned back to the unit, there were 2 calls placed. She called and he called. Like I said, we don't know what was on those calls. But in the first article that was released from with the landlord as being speaking in regards to the situation, that stated if she had known that this would have transpired, she wouldn't have placed the call. She did not intend for this to happen. He didn't have any threat to him or to her. Or Desmond. She's sorry that this happened. Now, all of her information has now been retracted and or changed. I cannot find that article anymore that supports the fact that this was not the intention of the call initially placed. I don't know if this officer was in partial uniform or full uniform. We don't even know if he was on duty. So that information is unclear to us. Now, going into
just 1 second. If he wasn't on duty, how did he get the call to arrive there in the first place?
I have no idea.
And is there any evidence of him wearing any form of body cam or?
No. That said, they're not legalized to wear body cams. They're not off. It's not required for them to have to wear them on their person.
Okay. So, here's the thing. This officer arrives, as far as we know, confronts Desmond, who at this precise moment in time is knocking on the door, to which Desmond opens the door again, and Andre is pleading with this guy to help him because this guy is fake. This guy's out to get him. Andre is frightened, frantic, panicking. Is there any
Desmond,
go on.
Desmond himself, there is a cane that is on that porch. I saw it myself. There is a cane to where Desmond proceeds to try and hit Andre off of his porch, yelling and screaming, "Get the F off of my property." And then he goes into saying, I'm not going to shut. The officer tells him to put down the stick. He says he's not going to shut the door because he's not going to be responsible for what happens. So I don't know if that's in regards to Andre and his situation or him in fear that Andre is going to break down his door. So that is what was unclear to me. So Desmond said, no, I'm not shutting the door. He left it wide open to get full visual, to prevent the door from breaking and to witness whatever were to occur. So Andre's impression that his life was was in danger, again, wasn't a huge concern for the witness because of other things that I've read in the report in regards to that.
Okay, so what happens next? So there he is on the doorstep, pleading for help. The officer's still at the door. What is the report saying?
Andre barged through. There's a conversation that's being had, yelling. Andre barges through the door past the witness, and he slips and falls on the ground because his socks are wet and he has on one shoe. So he falls on the ground. I believe it said he fell to his knees and his hands and knees. They're wrestling with him. The officer is around about 220 pounds. Desmond, he's about a good 230. Desmond admits to his participation in trying to apprehend Andre. The police officer, Consider Vasu, encourages the witness to help subdue Andre. He does so by placing his foot on Andre's neck while trying to cuff him while the officer is on his back. On Andre's back. Andre, per the witness, states that he doesn't know how he got all this strength, but he turned loose from that position. With a person's foot on your neck and a police officer on your back, Andre turns loose from that, is what he's stating. Wow. And I'm going to explain it as best as I can because understand I'm not there, but these are multiple stories in which the witness displays that are not consistent with each other. So he says Andre is flailing and kicking around. He kicks Andre's on his stomach. They're trying to cuff him. Andre kicks the officer in his sternum, which is hard to believe if you're on your stomach. Now, if you're on your back, then that's different. But being on his stomach, that he kicked the officer in his sternum, which backs the police officer into Desmond's bedroom. Andre gets up, is issued out commands or warnings, and charges the officer with a knife. He was tased. Nobody saw the knife being drawn. Nobody knows where it came from. It just, a knife appeared and Andre's charging with it. He tased Andre to no avail. The knife fell to his left, if I'm not mistaken, per the documents. He fell on his bottom, was able to retrieve this knife, again, in a home that he's not familiar with, being completely gone. He's able to get back to his feet, locate the knife, and go towards the officer again. Desmond says that the officer gave out 6 to 7 warnings, stop or I'll shoot you, stop or I'll shoot you, repeated times. And he says that Andre says, do what the F you have to do. Don't believe it. And so at that point, he takes the 3 shots, one entering each lung and the other entering the wall behind him or the wall aside from him. I have a visual of the floor plan, but I don't want to completely break it down because you have to see it.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing from our perspective, even in layman's terms. So again, which is why we call this Blind Men Can't See. And I'm hoping our audience are beginning to understand the title of this particular show right now. Because up until this point, the officer was not aware that Andre was blind, registered or not. Desmond believed that there was something wrong with his sight. At least one eye, anyway, was blind. And anybody with an ounce of common sense, having seen Desmond or looked into his face and would have seen the eye, would have been aware that at least he was partially sighted at the very least, if not totally blind. But you'd have at least believed he was partially sighted, and you'd have been able to distinguish which side of his body he was partially sighted on. It was as clear as that, right? So for Desmond, the witness or the guy whose house that Andre was knocking on, he was aware that Desmond had a problem with his sight, whether partially or not. To what degree, we can't, divulge, but at least we know that he'd already accepted he was aware of something. The officer, on the other hand, wasn't. So everything that has been directed and depicted from this point onwards was done initially without the officer having a single clue that Andre was either partially or completely blind. Right? So here's the question. How can a blind man lose a knife, retrieve it, and attack with precision or any surety an individual he cannot see? How could the police expect anyone to believe that Andre, while he was struggling, and bearing in mind at some point he was on the floor with somebody on his back and another one a foot on his neck and all the rest of it, the knife was... You try blindfolding yourself, dropping a knife onto the floor, right, and finding it. In fact, don't even do that. Don't even blindfold yourself. Go into your room and turn the light out. Drop something on the floor at night. Just drop it and let it go to... Close your eyes and let it go to somewhere where you haven't seen where it goes to. And I dare you to think that you could be able to find it quickly in order for you to be able to react or respond to any situation that was in a current mode of action, if you understand where I'm coming from. Because while Andre was in that position of somebody on his back, somebody on his neck, for him to have been able, I mean, at very best, his hand would have been spreading around the floor. And the officer would have just put his foot on his hand, wouldn't he? Or just kick the knife away from his hand.
And Kervin, the thing that is astonishing to me at best is that this knife that they're referring to, it is a martial arts type of knife. I'm pretty sure that you've seen the image of the knife, but just for hindsight of those who have not seen, it is a short blade, 6-inch, double bladed. It has finger grooves on it, with the circle tip to where you would insert your pinky to where you can swing it around in your hand. This round about $100 or so on Amazon. However, to man such a knife, you have to have sight and be able to physically put it in a holster. Now, I know in all my 32 years, Andre has not worn a belt his pants are regularly fitted. He doesn't wear a belt to be able to holster this. This knife requires a holster because it's double-edged. I saw my brother in that damn casket. He had no lacerations on his right or left waist. He had no lacerations on his finger. To man this particular knife, to even pick it up off the ground with complete vision, you would probably injure yourself if you're not extremely, extremely careful. There was no way that this knife belonged to Andre. And as soon as that article was released, the family immediately knew that this was staged. This was a complete setup. Because for one, he's not going to carry around a knife. For two, he's not physically able to man this particular knife. And the thing that strikes me the most is I saw the report of everything that was logged into evidence per the investigation. Everything was there except for that holster. Where did this knife come? Where did this knife come from? And the police officer that arrived at the scene of the crime immediately identified this knife as a common carry for the police officer. So now my brother's death is deemed as training for these police officers. Now they can't wear it on his vest. Why was the officer not compliant with the investigation? Why did the officer immediately seek to legal action on his own outside of the Bureau? Why did I understand that due to confidentiality, attorney and client, there's only such information that you can divulge. I understand that. But this officer is stating that Andre took this knife off of his vest because now they can't figure out how he got this knife. Nobody saw it on him, period. Nobody saw him to take it nobody saw him take it from his waistband. The knife just magically appeared, and after he was shot, happened to be on the ground, poking from the floor to the sky, as if somebody threw it with all their strength. That knife stood straight up in the air up until the end of the investigation, to where they removed it off the floor. Andre hand of foot, it's not, if it fell from his hands, it's not going to stay there and stay stagnant this whole time throughout the police arriving, the coroners coming, the medics coming. It stayed there in the ground as if somebody took their hand with full force and stabbed it in the ground. And then he says the witnesses' fingerprints are on the knife. The officer's fingerprints are on the knife, but Andre's fingerprints aren't on the knife. That officer, like you said, had no idea that Andre was partially, maybe he had some idea that he was partially blind, but in my opinion, he didn't pay enough attention to detail to anything to even know that. He discovered that that's where the knife comes into play, because he assumed that he had some vision to where he could wield this knife, but he had no idea. And my impression, I believe, is that because of the time frame, now, maybe 10 minutes within the officer originally approaching the house, article states that he calls for backup. So the backup never arrived until after Andre was shot. So they're stating that he called for backup at that time before the shooting, and that he called for backup after Andre was shot, and then they arrived. So initially, they were never called. They were called at the time in which it was reported. Everybody identified this knife. The police department identified this knife already, that it is a common carry, and I understand why it would be, but for them to say that Andre took this knife off of his vest, how would he do that? Tell me, how would he do that?
Just one quick observation made by the remarkable Yolanda McNear, a very dear friend to this show in particular, and obviously the co-founder of Post, Protect Our Stolen Treasure, who works tirelessly to support families and women in particular across the United States of America who are impacted by police brutality and have lost loved ones in Killed by Cops incidents. But she makes this valid point. And hear this. If Andre had just been released from hospital, or had just come from the hospital with a hospital band wrist on his hand, where did the knife possibly come from? Where could it have come from?
Yeah, that's exactly my key point, because in February 22nd, after I had the meeting, my family and I had the meeting with Danielle Outlaw and Ted Wheeler, I had to, before my departure back to California, because of the stress, I had to go to the hospital. This was not planned. It was just something that happened. I happened to have a nurse, and I bombarded her with a ton of questions. And because he is legally blind, they would have removed his clothes and help him regown for procedures, testing, blood work, this, that, and the other. So they would have done that. Now, if this knife was in his side, if the nurse would have took it, he wouldn't have had any idea. But if it was discovered, that would have been in his hospital records. That is not. A knife is not noticed by anyone but this police officer. The nurse does not recall, and my oldest brother has spoken with the hospital, stating that they were bedside to Andre, seeing him while he was there, and she'll further investigate as far as what he can do. But then again, that's off the record, because I don't have direct communication with her. But if a knife was discovered, it would have been discovered first at the hospital. And if this man is experiencing mental ill encounters or situations, for the hospital to hand him back a knife in his mental state says another thing.
Where's the accountability and liability there, right?
Exactly.
You know, we are getting very close. We've got 6 minutes left, and I still think there is just so much more to get out of this. I do believe that there's probably going to be a part 2 to this show when we can find another date to bring you back, so that we can delve into this even deeper, Dee, because I just feel that there's so much more that I want to pull out of this. I'm just beginning. I'm just starting, you know, with all the information or lack of information available to support or justify any claim that the law enforcement would have for justifying a kill on a registered blind man.
Oh yeah.
Just one more question. While Andre was desperately knocking on the door, when the officer arrived and he then went back to bang the door the second time, and Desmond, the person at the home, was reluctant to either shut the door or B, let him in, and there was all of that stuff going on. That would have been at the point, and anybody who understands mental health will understand where I'm coming from, that would be at the point where his paranoia would be at its greatest, because he would have felt trapped. He would have had the officer behind him, and he would have had the door not being opened or him being welcomed in front of him. And he would have had nowhere to go. So if he had a knife, that would have been the point of where he would have needed to have pulled it out in order to gain access into the house and find an escape route out the other side.
You are spot on, Irvin. You are spot on.
So why did the knife only appear, or apparently appear, after the event? And how can they justify claiming that, I'm struggling to see how anyone, any investigation or anybody who are looking into this particular story can corroborate the police facts and evidence presented as justification for a legal kill.
So there, I have no. My questions are just as clear as yours. I have no idea with all the information that's here. All I can think of is the code of silence. They know what they did. The meeting that we had with Ted and Danielle, we pretty much, I feel honestly, duped into that, because we provided questions that we demanded answers to further assist them in covering up. That's my strong belief.
Well, just one more second. Just one more second before you carry on. We've got 3 minutes left, and I'm going to let you finish because I want you to have the last word. But again, Stephanie Babb has just brought this out, and the thought was in my mind as well. So I just felt that need to ask the question now, before we close. When Andre arrived, he told Desmond that he thought somebody was trying to kill him, right? So again, when that police officer arrived, the first thing that he would have done was pulled out his knife to defend himself, right? If he didn't believe that was a police officer, he was telling Desmond that this guy's fake, right? This guy's not a real policeman. This guy's out to kill him. Then he would have pulled. Anybody with any common sense would believe that would be the point, that he'd pull out the knife in order for him to defend himself against somebody that he believed was not a real police officer, which would suggest to me, as you kind of hinted at the beginning, that this officer may well not have been in uniform or even on duty.
Correct.
Because there would have been something about him that would have given him the presence of an active officer on duty.
That's right.
Now, we've got 2 minutes left. We're going to run out of time, and I'm going to need to bring you back for a second show, Dee, because we ain't done yet. I'm about to start peeling this onion raw.
There you go.
So
I appreciate you giving me the time, and we are going to close, and I'm more than happy to do a part two, definitely, because there's even things that you've stated that allows me to dig a bit deeper. So I thank you for that, and giving me the opportunity to share this. Ultimately, this is not a matter of police misconduct. This is injustice at its finest, deeply rooted. We're starting to see it more and more every day. Over 80,000 of these officers have been investigated or submitted citation on the behalf of falsifying documents, doing things illegally and improperly throughout our nation. So this is not the first time that this has happened, and most certainly it won't be the last. But here's what we have to do. We definitely have to stand in awareness for mental health, police accountability, and stopping these unjustified murders, because they don't have the authority to size us up, to determine whether life is should be forthgoing or it stops there. These people out in the streets, they have lives, they have families that they need to make it home to as well. And how dare anybody in authority that carries the badge, the knife, the gun, whatever they carry, they don't have the ability to make life-altering decisions for the rest of the world. These men are out here with families. These wives are out here without husbands. The whole nation mourns when we lose somebody in this way. So from my family to yours, definitely stand in solidarity for everyone who has lost. And we would love to hear their stories as well, because together we have to unite and fight. Divided, we are just as it is. This is a lack of hearing the nation speak. This is what happens when the nation does not speak.
Amen.
This is what happens. So we
Right.
definitely have to speak. So if the not speaking has such an in-depth result, then just imagine what your voice could do. So my brothers and sisters out there, stop thinking that your voice doesn't matter, because it does. We need to use it right, and we need to put action to it, because it has to stop somewhere.
Amen. We are dead. We've run out of time. In fact, we've run over time. I want to thank you very much, D. We are going to have you back as soon as we're done. Please get on the phone with TJ. Book another date. We want the Blind Men Can't See Part 2. We've got some more to uncover on this. I want to thank you very much. I also want to thank TJ for her contributions and her input. Sorry we didn't get her involved a little bit more in this show, and she would have normally closed the show, but we are right out of time. Our next show next Saturday is the Roundtable, the repeat of the Roundtable Part 2, along with Yolanda McNair, Jonathan Newton, Jerry Summers, Scott Russian, Justin Powers, Mark Clements, and all those other favorite guys that we have on our panel. And this will be one of the cases that we'll be discussing, I would imagine, as to how we go forward on next Saturday. So we'll have this one on the agenda, as well as I'm sure TJ's got another couple that she's put to one side that we're going to be looking at as a panel. So once again, I want to thank everybody that's taken part and contributed to the show. Those of you that put your suggestions and your questions in, prompted a response from us. We're back next Saturday for another Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. My name's Kervin Julian. I'm out of here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Or like this.
The music.
Do you like music like this?
Great music all the time.
Or like this?
The music you love.
Maybe this.
Great music that makes you want to turn up the volume loud.
Or life check like this.
Especially where human life is concerned. Surely, sooner or later, people will realize that lives actually matter.
Then you're in the right place. Keep it locked to World Jam Global, where music is harmony.
Music 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, you're my world jam. Hotter than them.
See live schedule.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime.